Hi guys, it's Mishel, Deception Bytes. I hope you're all still doing well. Tonight is the July 31st and it's 10:28 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, even though it is the 31st, we are looking at Q's post from the 30th. And I'm picking up from where I left off in the last video. Now, that's still going to leave us with today's post, but since Q is still posting today, I'm not going to be able to get to those until tomorrow. Q has several posts from today, and I noticed that he is still posting. So I'll pick those up in the morning. I'm going to try and get them done tomorrow morning, early afternoon, and get that out of the way because he'll probably have more tomorrow. So let's go ahead here, the next one from where I left off in the last video. What happens when California is in serious debt and lost priority aid from the federal government due to sanctuary status? And the first, this isn't going to let us read it because you need to pay for a prescription. No, you don't have to pay for a prescription, but you do need to pay for a subscription to the Washington Post to read this, but I will read the headline if it'll let me do that. Justice Department sues California over sanctuary laws that aid those in U.S. illegally. And here comes the blocker, so that's all we can get to. But that's really all we need to know anyway. So let's go back and look at this. Since Q is wanting us to look at these, I think that we should. Anytime now. Continue to article. All right, the top 4 reasons California is unsustainable. Well, let's see. And stop this. There. All right. All right. California is a place unlike any other on the globe. It boasts perhaps the greatest national resources of any state, along with shining high-tech industries. However, like many good economic stories, government policies threaten its future. Indeed, its government has made California unsustainable. Of course, it wasn't always this way. As the 1960s came to a close in California, it had a population of nearly 20 million. In the decade before, its economic strength afforded the construction of a vast state water project and higher education system that was the envy of the world. Matched with a majestic and trade-friendly coastline, along with visionary business leaders, California's future seemed secured. No more. And here are the 4 major reasons. Where was I? Here are the 4 major reasons California is at such a great risk. And of course, they put this here, so I can't. Just drives me insane. All right. So, 4, California's infrastructure deficit. That vast state water project was designed for a population not much greater than 25 million. Today, on any one day, California verges on nearly 40 million within its borders and is projected to reach 50 million, if not higher. In the last 50 years, however, California's infrastructure needs have been ignored. The state's water system remains essentially as it was in the 1960s. As for its roads, a recent headline declared, California's roads are some of the poorest in the nation and rapidly getting worse. According to, we'll go on from the roads and go on to number 3, government debt. How much in debt are the California governments? That's hard to know too. According to a January 2017 study, California state and local governments owe $1.3 trillion as of June 30th, 2015. The study was based on a review of federal, state, and local financial disclosures. In other words, that $1.3 trillion in debt is the amount to which California governments admit. Other studies believe it to be more. Indeed, one study says it is actually $2.3 trillion, and a recent Hoover Institute stated that there is over $1 trillion in pension liability alone, or $76,884 per household. Incredibly, there are 4 million current pension beneficiaries, a number that continues to grow and which exceeds the total population of 22 states. What's the right number? Apparently, it is so large it is hard to accurately estimate. In every case, the number is staggering. California's taxes and regulations, when you consider the California legal system and its regulatory system, inclusive of the world's most comprehensive global warming law, California is likely the most regulated state in the country, if not the world. California also is among the highest tax state in the nation. California has the highest income tax rates. The top rate is 13.3. The next closest top tax rate is in Oregon at 9.9. However, Oregon does not have a sales tax. California has the 10th highest sales tax. We'll go on from the tax and the California governments. You would think all of the above would have government officials deeply worried, so much that they would cut back everywhere they could. If you thought that, you would be wrong, very wrong. California spends nearly $200 billion a year on budget and even more off budget in the form of programs paid with bonds, i.e. debt financing. As for the pension debt of the nearly $200 billion, it is the most recent budget As for the pension debt, of that, nearly $200 billion in the most recent budget, less than $2 billion was allocated to pay down that pension debt. More than that was spent this year on a high-speed rail project currently estimated to cost $70 billion, and which no one seems to want. Beyond that, as I wrote earlier, California is moving even farther left and wants the nation to pay for it. The next generation of leaders, Gavin Newsom, Kevin De Leon, Xavier Becerra, and Kamala Harris are significantly to the left of the old and conservative, by comparison, Jerry Brown and Dianne Feinstein. The new generation of leaders are supported by an influx of friendly voters who are replacing those that are leaving. And then, I don't even know if that takes into consideration all the, the illegal people there that probably aren't paying taxes. I don't know. So anyway, that's that. Let's go back and look at the last one. California lawmakers upset that wildfire money is left out of White House disaster aid request. Now, these fires were intentionally set. I don't care what anybody says. I believe that. This is not a normal scene from a fire. Every single thing is burnt to the ground, but the trees are still standing. That was directed energy. I think that is what they call it. You need to look that up. Look at this. This park is completely saved, but just all the houses around it are burned and the trees don't even look singed. The grass doesn't even look singed. Now, why wouldn't that burn when absolutely everything around it burned? And here's these trees standing. Some of them don't even look burned. Doesn't make sense to me. Some of the cars are burned up in the driveways. Yeah. Every day, Mike Thompson hears a new story about how last month's fires in Northern California have affected people's lives. Insurance is being denied. Tourism is down. Some companies have laid off workers. Block after block of homes are wiped out, and cars are melted down to their skeletal remains. The Napa Valley congressman said of his travels in Santa Rosa over the weekend, and yet none of the $44 billion that the White House requested of Congress on Friday for supplemental disaster aid includes funding to rebuild California after the fires, which killed 43 people and destroyed nearly 9,000 structures. Excuse me. A move that sparked an outcry from Thompson and his fellow lawmakers. I think it's very disappointing. Folks throughout California were ravaged by this fire, and we should ensure that they get the help and support they need, Thompson said Sunday. He and Representative Jared Huffman said in a joint statement that it was mind-boggling the Trump administration did not include any funds for California in the latest request, most of which will go to hurricane relief in Texas and Florida. California lawmakers had asked the White House for $7.4 billion to help residents recover from the wildfires that began in early October, calling it one of the deadliest and most destructive fire events in the state's history. None of that money was included in the Trump administration's package. It's appalling the White House is choosing to ignore the victims of California's wildfires. The latest disaster supplement request is a completely inadequate response to all the recent national disasters, but it's particularly egregious that no money was included to help Californians rebuild. Senator Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris said in a shared statement. Lawmakers in other states also criticized the supplemental disaster funding request, saying it was not enough to address the devastation left from the hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria. White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders defended the $44 billion figure, saying it was not a low amount. And I agree. And my guess is that if you ask any average citizen across this country, they wouldn't feel like it's low either, she said. The White House proposal addresses California's wildfire by calling for tax relief for those affected. The funds requested by California's lawmakers would go toward direct assistance to victims, rebuilding public infrastructure, restoring lost homes and wineries, and cleaning up debris and waste. The money would also replenish Federal Emergency Management Agency disaster relief funds to allow victims to apply for temporary housing, rebuild home and small businesses, receive crop insurance, and access basic needs, including medical care. Last month, Congress approved a $36.5 billion disaster aid package, which included $576.5 million for wildfire suppression in California and the West. Thompson said the federal response to the fire emergency was great, with help also pouring in from places as far away as Australia, which sent firefighters, but the rebuilding phase still needs more attention. He and his colleagues will continue to ask for supplemental federal disaster aid funds. I'm not done fighting, he said. So, oh gosh. All right, now let's go back. So, actually, this is what Q is saying in response to this. What happens when he's saying California's in serious debt, and they've lost priority aid from the government because they're illegally having sanctuary cities, okay? Sanctuary status, rather. And so he's suggesting that these fires were deliberately lit, which I happen to believe as well. And then he said, yeah, then they declare a state of emergency and require billions from the federal government. And it says, why did POTUS reject in the past? Well, I'm not sure why he rejected in the past. I don't know. But Q is saying sick people, the more you know. So, yeah, he is alluding to the fact that the fires were intentionally set. And I think a lot of the fires that are happening are intentionally set. And if you go and do a little bit of research on that, you'll see why I believe that, and you will be able to view the proof for yourself. I'd like to say that I could do a video on it sometime, but it's hard enough to keep up with all the Q posts right now. But when there is a lull, perhaps that is something that I could investigate. But it is something that I've done on my own time, and I will say that I am convinced they were deliberately set and that they were using technology to light them. All right, let's move on. Those you are taught to trust the most, ... Now remember, Q has asked that in the past, like, who are we taught to trust the most? Well, teachers, priests, pastors, people like that. Politicians, well, no, not really. I don't think anybody trusts politicians, but police, Anyway, let's go take a look. Those you are taught to trust the most. Let's look at it. Now, Yeah. Australian bishop convicted of sex abuse cover-up resigns. Vatican City, Pope Francis on Monday accepted the resignation of an Australian archbishop convicted in criminal court of covering up the sexual abuse of children by a priest, taking action after coming under mounting pressure from ordinary Catholics, priests, and even the Australian Prime Minister. It was the second major announcement of a sex abuse-related resignation in as many days, after France's dramatic sanctioning and demotion this weekend of a prominent U.S. cardinal. The move suggests Francis is keen to clean house before he leads to Dublin next month for a big Catholic family rally, where the sex abuse scandal is likely to dominate the agenda, given Ireland's devastating history with predator priests and the bishops who covered for them. In Australia, Adelaide Archbishop Philip Wilson was convicted in May and sentenced to a year's detention for failing to report to the police the repeated abuse of 2 altar boys by a pedophile priest. The late Reverend James Fletcher in the Hunter Valley region north of Sydney during the 1970s, he became the highest-ranking Catholic cleric ever convicted in a criminal court of abuse cover-up. Wilson, who denied the accusations, had immediately stepped aside after he was convicted but refused to resign pending an appeal. As recently as last week, though, Wilson acknowledged that calls for his sacking were increasing, and Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull added his voice to the chorus July 19th in urging Francis to fire him. Even one of Fletcher's victims spoke out. Australian media published a letter last week from Peter Goarty to Francis, urging him to remove Wilson. Imagine, if you can, your own childhood, your Catholic upbringing, and the character-destroying belief that you were engaged in the worst of more mortal sins. Goarty wrote the Pope, "I am now 57 years old and continue to struggle with the burden forced upon me." In a one-line statement Monday, the Vatican said Francis had accepted Wilson's resignation. At 67, he is well under the normal retirement age of bishops of 75. In a statement issued by the Archdiocese, Wilson said that he had submitted his resignation to Francis of his own will on July 20th, a day after Turnbull's call, and said he hoped his decision would help abuse victims and the rest of the Catholic community heal. "I had hoped to defer this decision until the appeal process had been completed," Wilson said. "However, there's just too much pain and distress caused by my maintaining the office of Archbishop." Francis, though, is under, where was I there? Anyway, I really don't think we need to read more of that. I think that we've got the gist of what happened, and it's very long, and that is something that you can look up on your own if you want to have more information about it. So it is under Australian bishop convicted of sex abuse, cover-up, resigns. All right, let's go back and continue. All right, so I think, hang on here, we'll try this one. Oops. And this is the United States Department of Justice, Project Safe Childhood. Project Safe Childhood is a nationwide initiative to combat the growing epidemic of child sexual exploitation and abuse, launched in May 2006 by the Department of Justice, led by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Criminal Division Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section. Project Safe Childhood marshals federal, state, and local resources to better locate, apprehend, and prosecute individuals who exploit children via the internet, as well as to identify and rescue victims. Excuse me. Now, let's look under Justice News. July 31st press release. Fort Wayne man sentenced to 120 months in prison. July 31st, sex offender sentenced to 36 months in prison for failure to register. Kansas man sentenced to 18 years for producing child pornography. Warrensburg man sentenced to 20 years for producing child pornography. Warwick man sentenced to federal prison for sex trafficking a minor. Now that's just on the 31st, I would assume. Yeah. Let's go to more news. Not that we want to see every single thing, but okay, that was from the 31st, all that. And the 30th, Berkeley County man sentenced for sex offender registry violation. Fort Wayne man sentenced to 180 months in prison. Shelton attorney sentenced to 13 years in federal prison for child exploitation offenses. Former Virginia high school science teacher sentenced to 23 years in prison for producing child pornography. Jackson man sentenced to 7 years in federal prison for distributing child sex abuse videos over the internet. Yeah, so this is happening a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening. A lot. More than we hear about. All right, let's go back. So then Q says dark to light. Q. All right. Now let's move on to the next. And this is July 30th, which makes sense because that's what day we're on. Right now, even though it's the 31st and we're behind, I have to keep telling myself that so that I, give myself a little push. All right. Now, first of all, it links to this document. Let's go take a boo at that. And this is the United States Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, Washington, D.C., and filed April 26, 2017. So this is the FISA document, but of course it's been redacted, and I'm certainly not going to read all 99 pages, so there you go. But it is available out there. If you're looking for it. So, let's go back here. Now, Q says Nicholas Rasmussen. Actually, one of the last names of my favorite poets is Rasmussen, but that means absolutely nothing, and that and $5 will get you a coffee at Starbucks, if you like that swill. Anyway, Nicholas Rasmussen, important name to remember. He is the former director of the NCTC. We're going to be seeing more. And there we go. Going to go out to this link. Now this is McStain's Foundation. The McStain Institute, no names, Nicholas Rasmussen, Senior Director of the McCain Institute's Counter-Terrorism Program. Imagine the McCain Institute being involved in counter-terrorism. I mean, that's really kind of, like an oxymoron, sort of. Anyway. Well, I guess it's not really an oxymoron. It's kind of ironic that the McCain Institute is involved in counter-terrorism programs. Is a national security expert with over 27 years in U.S. government service. Since 2001, Rasmussen served in the U.S. intelligence community, most recently serving as director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Wonder how much terrorism they stopped. Wonder how much terrorism they contributed to. Rasmussen held senior posts across 3 White House administrations, serving in senior positions on the National Security Council staff under Presidents Bush and Obama, before being appointed director of the NCTC by President Obama and continuing his tenure at the request of President Trump's administration in 2017. In 2014, Rasmussen became director of NCTC. In his role, he provided independent assessments on counterterrorism issues to the President and National Security Council, led and integrated the counterterrorism community on behalf of the Director of National Intelligence. Rasmussen prioritized deepening the center's intelligence analysis to support the U.S. government's campaign against ISIS and expanding NCTC's reach with federal, state, and local partners, as well as the private sector and foreign allies. Prior to becoming director, Rasmussen served as NCTC's deputy director from 2012 to 2014, and in senior policy and planning positions at NCTC from 2004 to 2007. Now, Rasmussen joined the counterterrorism community 6 days after the 9/11 attacks, serving as Director of Regional Affairs in the Office of Combating Terrorism on President George W. Bush's NSC staff from 2001 to 2004. Do we really need to read all this? I'm asking myself that. Do we? Probably not, but let's read the last paragraph where hopefully they're summing it all up. Rasmussen has frequently provided expert analysis on terrorism and national security issues for the New York Times, the Washington Post, Time Magazine, CNN, Fox News, PBS, and National Public Radio. He's currently an intelligence and national security analyst and contributor for NBC and MSNBC. Rasmussen was a fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and an adjunct faculty member at Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, where he taught a course on U.S. counterterrorism policy. He and his wife, Maria, reside in Alexandria, Virginia. So, that is a name we are supposed to remember. All right. Have we remembered it? I remembered it. Well, I'm going to remember it. Maybe. All right. Let's go back. So, now, he's saying, important name to remember, he, she, they, Q, the team, or whatever. Former director of NCTC, and now, Q says, think FISA, think no name, so that's McStain, of course. White House visitor logs, no name, / Hussein, dates, White House visitor logs, no name, / Brennan, / Hussein, dates, White House visitor logs, no name, Brennan, Comey, Hussein, dates, White House visitor logs, no name, Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Hussein, dates, replaced by Rasmussen was replaced by Travers, and the link is below. The current visitor logs are not public. They are completely gone from the White House website. I also see no way to access the archives there. I found a huge file for Barack Hussein Obama's administration, but it stops in 2016. So, let's look at this. Why? Because Q is telling us to. All right, Acting Director of NCTC, Russell Russ Tavers. Russell Russ Tavers took office as the Acting Director of the National Counterterrorism Center, NCTC, on December 24, 2017. He has served in a number of leadership positions within the NCTC, including Deputy Director, Senior Counselor to the Director, Acting Director to the Office of Data Strategy and Innovation, and the Chief Data Officer for NCTC and ODNI. That and another $5 will get you another cup of coffee at Starbucks. Okay, so do we really need to read through everything that he's done and everywhere that he's worked? I don't think so. Okay, let's go back. All right, next. Q is saying Defense Intelligence Liaison to British Intelligence in London. So I would assume that he's saying that he is the Defense Intelligence Liaison to British Intelligence in London. Think UK. Current Director of the CIA. Now, who's that? Well, it's Gina Haspel. Haspel. And, we've already looked into her. We've already seen a I will go out here to show you, but I'm not going to read through her entire thing because we have looked at this before and more than once. But here she is. She was sworn into she was officially sworn in as director of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, on May 18th, 2018. And I remember that, and you should as well, because it was not that long ago. All right, she's a career intelligence officer. And Director Haspel is the recipient of the Intelligence Medal of Merit, a Presidential Rank Award, the Donovan Award, and the George H.W. Bush Award for Excellence in Counterterrorism. So that is Gina Haspel. Now, let's go back. Now, it says, Q points to this, pointing out Gina Haspel as the current director of the CIA. Then it says her UK bio is removed. And that is the CIA's station chief, London, UK. Now remember, it says unnamed woman. Not the last video, but the video before that, we talked about the unnamed woman. Furthermore, Haspel is seen as a Russia expert and a close ally of Britain's MI6, having been London station chief from 2014 to 2017. And Q says, the more you know. Now, let's take a look at this link that Q is providing for us. Gina Haspel must atone for her past to become CIA director. Senate confirmation hearing will focus on documents relating to interrogation techniques used inside a secret prison in Thailand. Now, we looked into this the last, not the last video, but the video before that about, they had destroyed the tapes of the interrogation and torture of Al-Qaeda operatives. So that's what that was about. And while she was not the one in charge of that, she obviously knew it happened. The battle in the Senate on Wednesday over Gina Haspel's confirmation as the new director of the CIA is set to become a public reckoning of one of the darker chapters in modern U.S. history. Haspel, who is currently the CIA deputy director after 33 years in the agency, ran a secret detention center in Thailand in 2002 where inmates were tortured. Over the following 2 years, she was a senior operations officer at the CIA Counterterrorism Center, which oversaw the interrogation program around the world. Then, in 2005, she drafted an order for her then boss, Jose Rodriguez, the head of the CIA clandestine service, calling for the destruction of nearly 100 videotapes of interrogation sessions. So she was the one that drafted the order for her boss. So I guess, yeah, she's definitely more than involved. Despite strong support from former CIA chiefs, Haspel's chances of becoming the agency's first female boss are delicately balanced in a divided Senate. Senators had demanded greater transparency from the CIA over her history, and on Monday the agency delivered a cardboard box full of classified documents. But it's unclear what those documents will prove, and they may raise more questions than answers. The New York Times reported that the White House has seen newly released documentation, including records of chats in the CIA's internal messaging system, in which Haspel raises no objections to the CIA's interrogation techniques. After being summoned to the White House on Friday to discuss the new information, Haspel is reported to have offered to withdraw, uncertain over the administration's commitment to backing her. She had to be talked out of quitting by senior presidential aides, including the legislative director, Mark Short, and White House spokeswoman, Sarah Sanders, who was urgently dispatched to the CIA headquarters in Langley to bolster Haspel's resolve. She wants to do everything she can to make sure the integrity of the CIA remains intact, isn't unnecessarily isn't unnecessarily attacked, Sanders said on Monday when asked about Haspel's apparent crisis of confidence over the weekend. If she felt that her nomination would have been a problem for that and for the agency, then she wanted to do everything she could to protect the agency. At the time, she wants to do everything she can to protect the safety and security of Americans, which is why she is 100% committed to going through this confirmation process and being confirmed as the next leader of the CIA. In an effort to boost her standing ahead of the Senate confirmation hearings, Trump sent out a tweet that celebrated rather than downplayed Haspel's role in the enhanced interrogation program that included waterboarding, the simulated drowning of detainees. My highly respected nominee for CIA Director, Gina Haspel, has come under fire because she was too tough on terrorists, Trump declared. Think of that. In these very dangerous times, we have the most qualified person, a woman, who Democrats want out because she is too tough on terror. The Senate battle over Haspel will be the focus for protests on Capitol Hill by human rights activists who see her ascent as evidence that there has been no real reckoning in the intelligence agencies for the excess of the Bush administration's war on terror. Haspel herself is expected to say she has learned from past mistakes and would not go along with any further order to use waterboarding, sleep deprivation, or other forms of torture. At the heart of Wednesday's confirmation hearing will be an examination of what happens in detention Site Green, a secret prison in Thailand which Haspel briefly ran in 2002. Her role in overseeing interrogation while running the agency's counterterrorism center in the 2 years after that, and how much say she had in a decision to destroy interrogation videotapes without the explicit assent of the CIA leadership or congressional oversight committees. The CIA itself has conducted an unusual lobbying campaign on Haspel's behalf, reflecting the agency's desire to have an insider in charge rather than risk a political appointee. CIA veterans would also see her confirmation as a sign that the agency has been officially absolved of its misdeeds in the war on terror. John Brennan, CIA chief under the Obama administration, used Twitter to appeal for her confirmation by skeptical Democrats. Senators Brennan wrote, "Show that you put your country above politics. Gina Haspel is a competent, experienced, and highly qualified intelligence professional. Ask her tough questions, listen to her answers, and then decide. But don't penalize her for previous policy decisions or because Donald Trump picked her." Furthermore, Haspel is seen as a Russia expert and close ally of Britain's MI6, having been London station chief from 2014 to 2017. She is reported to have insisted on the forceful U.S. response in solidarity with the UK to the prisoning of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter, Yulia, in Salisbury, using a nerve agent that is allegedly to have originated from Russian government laboratories. I doubt that. CIA insiders hope that Haspel will insulate the agency from Trump's indulgent approach to Vladimir Putin. But to achieve that, Haspel will have to prove on Wednesday that she and the agency she seeks to run have atoned for their past. Now, that is interesting. Let's see when that was written. That was written Tuesday, May 8th, 2018. So not that long ago. All right. Now, let's go on. So he's bringing our attention to, furthermore, Haspel is seen as a Russia expert and a close ally of Britain's MI6, having been London station chief. So she could be helpful. I guess we have to trust Trump at this point. I don't particularly like the fact that she has been involved in these types of interrogations because I don't agree, but that is my opinion only. All right. So let's take a look at this because this is from the Great Awakening and I think it sheds some light. Okay. Let's go down to where... Okay. Okay, let me see. Now, Nicholas Rasmussen, connection with No Name and FISA. He was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Why Q emphasized that name? Will it come out in unredacted FISA? Well, we don't know. That, you know, I'm sure that name's going to come up again, or he wouldn't have told us to remember it. Now, he says, why are dates important? This person, this is from the Great Awakening Board. Russ Tavers is the new director of NCTC, and that's who replaced Rasmussen. And looks like Q is confirming UK connection with the development of false Russian collusion narrative and related reports. Was it assisted by UK operatives or controlled by them? Why UK connection of Haspel is important and why was removed from her bio. So, yeah, why is the UK connection important and why was it removed from her bio? It's not in her Wikipedia bio. She has 4 siblings. Haspel attended high school in the United Kingdom, but it doesn't say about her being station chief. So, what are we missing here? Senators had demanded greater transparency from the CIA over her history, and on Monday, the agency delivered a cardboard box full of classified documents. The more you know. Q. This obviously stinks, and Gina Haspel is in the middle of it. Obviously, we all love CIA, but there's more to that. What if UK connection is much deeper than just high school? Who is pulling the strings here? I think it's heavily connected to FISA and the false dossier. Now the question is, if unredacted FISA sheds some light on this, or Q is signaling the connection ahead of time, so when it comes out, we analyze it, keeping in mind Haspel and UK connection? I don't know. Let me see. Take a look at this article about Holder allowing the NCTC to create dossiers on U.S. citizens. It was 2012 while Rasmussen was the deputy director of NCTC. Road paved to create a Trump dossier? Excerpt. In a secret government agreement granted without approval or debate from lawmakers, the U.S. Attorney General recently gave the National Counterterrorism Center sweeping new powers to store dossiers on U.S. citizens, even if they are not suspected of a crime, according to a news report. So the change granted by Holder would allow databases containing information about U.S. citizens to be shared with foreign governments for their own analysis. And then someone said, I didn't notice that part. Good find. And then someone says this, shared with foreign governments is a big line to cross. Well, I agree. Seems like it happened in the case of Trump. I don't think they ever thought Trump was going to win. It was just another step towards surveillance state and 1984 style control of society. It doesn't mean it was used for Trump dossier. I think we're getting a lot of puzzles here. It's only a matter of time when unredacted versions go public. Yeah, we can throw all sorts of things out there and we really don't know until, Q comes out and lets us know. And this seems to be a cycle. We get things and then we make a bunch of conjectures, and some of us may be closer to the right answer than others. Some people may even hit on the right answer, but Q does eventually let us know what is right. So, says, I think that Rasmussen used this loophole to create a dossier for McCain, who was a candidate. That sounds like a crime to me. Once McCain was no longer a candidate, Rasmussen turned it over to Hillary Rodham Clinton. The FBI provided it to the UK intelligence and worked with Steele on the dossier. When it came time that Rasmussen signed an affidavit on the FISA application, he signed it as if he never saw it, which was fraudulent and criminal with malintent. Interesting. Anyway. And then Rasmussen joined the counterterrorism community 6 days after the 9/11 attacks, serving as a director of regional affairs in the Office of Combating Terrorism. We had already read that in the other link. And I think that we can go on from here. And if Rasmussen, vis-a-vis the NCTC, prepared the dossier for McCain, it was fair game as intel for MI6. This might be a leap, but I think Rasmussen was the originator of the dossier. Very bad if this is right. I don't know. I don't think we really can tell. Let me see what this person is saying. Looks bad if you think logically, but in light of NCTC legal. But did MI6 deliver any info that was used in the dossier? No name Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Hussein meetings in White House might be crucial. I would assume document signature dates will correlate with White House logs, and that's why Q mentioned it. And that's probably why the logs are missing. Right? I would assume. That's what I would assume. But hey, who am I? I'm Mishel. Who are you? All right, let's go back. And let's go on. All righty. I think this might be, let's see how many we have to go here. Until we reach the 31st. I'm just seeing, I guess we have a bit to go. My gosh, I better pick up the speed here. Pick up the speed. Let's go back to where we were. Okay, sorry. Alrighty. Now, this is pertaining to the Michael Avenatti office. All right. Okay. So Q quotes this anon, and this anon is saying Michael Avenatti office and the feed. Did anons get the wrong angle on this? Q, he's asking, who is supplying the feed? Feed as in the image, camera feed. Remember, the image is flipped. Why? It would appear Q's guys are taking a picture of a bad actor. Think mirror. Now, what if people in the vehicle are those working on Sunday at Michael Avenatti's office? Michael Avenatti's bad actors are the ones supplying the feed. The images have been ripped, taken from their phones. Like in SG KJU, Kim Jong-un photos, like, anyway, not sure what SG is. Anyway, the men in black was the operator who just went and took the two photos of Michael Avenatti office and that Q posted moments earlier, phone in hand, full black attire plus shades plus poor facial angle. Nothing there can be used to easily identify the individual, even more so if he's an operator. The above would explain Michael Avenatti shitting bricks and asking the Twitterverse for help. Message sent. Now, who supplied the feed? Saudi Arabia, Clinton Foundation. We have it all. U, access, universal access, kills. Spook, Q. Now, let's take a look at something. Let's take a look at this. Now, I happen to like what Great Awakening had to say, and that's why we're back. I've spent a lot of time on this, and it's been very fascinating. I think a lot of you have hit on various pieces to the puzzle, but I want to attempt to bring a bigger 30,000-foot picture into focus that incorporates those pieces from a different perspective. There are previous drops that I think shed light on this that haven't been revisited. Here we go. Clue number 1, Blackwater. The first clue starts with Q reposting his own post from June 10th underneath Michael Avenatti's tweet, on June 10th. In the post from Q, it says evidence kills and Blackwater on guard. Now Q is clearly making a reference back to that time period. So let's refresh on what was going on there. That was right at the time of the North Korea summit. Immediately after this post, an anon says, "Thank you, Eric, for protecting POTUS," with Eric being a reference to Eric Prince, founder of Blackwater. Excuse me. Now, Q responds, "Not POTUS." In other words, Blackwater was protecting someone else who had the evidence that would get them killed. Most anons, and I think rightly so, assume that this was referring to Kim. So Blackwater was protecting Kim because he had evidence that would get him killed. This will come to bear on the situation. Is Blackwater protecting Michael Avenatti, even though MA is clearly a black hat and bad actor, because he has evidence that needs to be protected? We'll come back to this. Clue 2, Saudi Arabia. So the Q post 1229 from the 21st of April was a post of 2 tweets, one from Ali Al-Ahmed, a Saudi political analyst, announcing that major gunfire was erupting from the Saudi palace. He mentions a guy named, I can't pronounce that, who has a treasure trove of official secret Saudi documents. Q then posts POTUS' tweet saying that because of the Dem lawsuit against the Republicans, he now has access to a treasure trove of material due to the discovery process in a trial. In other words, they have all the info from Saudi Arabia. We know that many Q posts that Saudi Arabia has been flipped through the purge that happened there last year, and has most likely been working with Q POTUS team, who provided the feed of the images. Saudi Arabia, for one, will tie this all together in a minute. Clue 3. The real MA. Interesting that Q, 1751, Q mentions that CIA, Mossad, this is only the second time in all of Q's postings that Mossad has come up. Why now? Is it possible that Michael Avenatti is the Mossad connection here that is starting to open up on the front? Who is the real MA? Many others have pointed out his connection to Saudi Arabia and the Clinton Foundation. So I won't go into detail on that other than to link you to this excellent article describing the connection. Also note that over the weekend, Michael Avenatti pissed off some Democrats saying he might run for president in 2020 and that Hillary was a tired old politician. Well, putting it together, Michael Avenatti most likely has a treasure trove of information that he has saved, compiled as his life insurance protection. It would include all kinds of info on the Clintons, their foundation, and all of its illicit dealings, and much more. Michael Avenatti also may have evidence implicating certain people, Brennan et al., in the attempted missile launch. In any case, evidence kills. And Michael Avenatti, ruffling feathers, is becoming very dangerous to him. So what happened over the weekend with these pics and Q's posting? Assumption number 1 about Q team that everyone is missing. Q team are patriots. It makes no sense that they would be involved in shady, illegal activity. Thus, 1, the man in black was not sent by Q team to scare, threaten Michael Avenatti, and 2, they don't lift the pics from these phones as that would violate all kinds of laws. They were fed these pictures. Who provided the feed? Those white hats or gray hats working with white hats in Saudi Arabia with connections to the Clinton Foundation. There are more good than bad, and Q team is the link to all the good players. So who is the man in black? It's got to be that he's a mobster thug sent to do the wet work for very high-level people. Clinton, Brennan, CIA, Mossad, and Blackwater guys in the car are there to protect Michael Avenatti so the evidence doesn't fall into the hands of bad actors. The message sent to Michael Avenatti is not Trump's gonna get you, as the media would portray it, but it's, hey, be warned, you are about to get suicided by your own, but we're protecting you for now. Some might say that maybe the man in black is the Blackwater protector. Not on your life. Q would never expose it if that were the case. But what about the Anon post that Q replies to? I think Q's reply has been widely misinterpreted. We've seen many times before that when Q replies to a post, he is not endorsing the entire post, but dealing with the parts he needs to deal with. In this post, Q comes back with who provided the feed and answers the question. Thus, the Anons speculate that MA's bad actors were the ones supplying the feed, but Q clearly disputes that by repeating the question and then answering it differently. No, not Michael Avenatti's bad actors, Saudi Arabia and Clinton Foundation. So I think that is, I think it's good. I think it's good, and I don't think I could do any better. So if I can't do any better, then I'm going to link to what's there. So there you go. I think that's as good as theory as any. All right. Now, what is this? I must be something because I linked to it. Well, hello, Great Awakening Board. Okay. Q7165 is amazing. I'm sitting there watching. Didn't we just read this somewhere? Sure seems like we read this somewhere. I am pretty certain we did, but let's see. Okay. I think we read this. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty bad when I can't remember what I read like 5-10 minutes ago. All right. Let's go on. Let's go on. Let's go on. Okay. And up to the next one. And then Q says right on schedule. And it goes into this. And of course, it's Avenatti targeted in person by QAnon, the crazy pro-Trump conspiracy theory. And you know, it's the same stuff. Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, is the latest target for supporters of the pro-Trump conspiracy theory QAnon, with police investigating a man's appearance near Avenatti's office after the building was mentioned in QAnon's post. So it goes on and on and on. And of course, it's, you know, definitely that, you know, it's just a conspiracy theory and all these, you know, now he's being threatened by all these crazy, you know, Q people. Anyway, I don't think we need to read that. And then it says, here we go. And then we have another one. What is QAnon? Explaining the bizarre right-wing conspiracy theory. The sprawling internet theory, beloved by Trump supporters, has ensnared everyone, from Tom Hanks to Hillary Clinton. Oh, poor Tom Hanks. Coochie, coochie, coo. Yeah, he looks really broken up about it. If you happen to be watching YouTube videos on Monday morning and were stuck by an urge to check in on one of America's most beloved movie stars, you were in for a nasty surprise. Sarah Ruth Ashcraft says Tom Hanks is a pedophile. Read the title of the top video search result for the actor's name. Tom Hanks, alleged sex slave, speaks out. Read another top search result. Indeed, the top 5 results and 8 out of the top 14 were variations on the pedophilia theme, interspersed with the hashtags QAnon, Pizzagate, and Pedogate. These bizarre results, first spotted by the NBC reporter Ben Collins, are not the result of the latest Me Too era investigation reporting. Instead, they are the entirely unsubstantiated manifestation of a sprawling right-wing conspiracy theory known as QAnon. Here's our best effort at explaining what you do and don't need to know about QAnon. And of course, I mean, what do you think? How do you think that they portray them? The same as, you know, they always do. She looks good there, Roseanne. Anyway, so anyway, I'm not going to read all this because it's the same stuff we read every day. Like, does any of this stuff really matter? Does any of this really matter? Sort of. Not because it's true, but because people who believe it might act on that belief. People respond very strongly to the threat of sexual violence against children. In 2016, oh, wait. Yeah, of course, they're going to bring up the pizza thing again at Washington, D.C. Comet Pizza. The fear of satanic sexual abuse rings in the late 1980s led to many criminal convictions, with some of the accused only being exonerated after serving years in prison. So it's just more of that. All right, let's go back. So, and Q is just kind of sarcastically throwing that out there. Yeah, right on schedule. Here we go. And up here, we have an anon. I think it's an anon. Yeah. Q is making reference to an anon that has posted what comes up when you type in QAnon. Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg videos show YouTube still has 3 of the top 5 results are QAnon conspiracy theorists calling him a pedophile. All right, and what is QAnon? Explaining the bizarre right-wing conspiracy theory. Fake news site, Your Newswire, puts QAnon pedophile conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. Avenatti targeted in person by QAnon, the crazy pro-Trump, ... How YouTube bolstered another baseless conspiracy theory. Excuse me. And YouTube search results for A-list celebrities hijacked by conspiracy theorists. Excuse me, not sure where that's coming from. Okay, conspiracy theorists turned Tom Hanks' YouTube search results into... I don't know. It didn't finish. All right. The grifter is taking gullible conservative conspiracy theorists for a ride. For the uninitiated, QAnon has replaced Pizzagate as the main conspiracy in the fringe. All right. Now this anon said, look who's writing about Q in the 10 latest news articles about QAnon. They are pushing the Pizzagate accusing actors of pedophilia angle. They're scared. And Q responds to the post just with an acknowledgement. He's acknowledging. So let's go on. Now, here he's this is referring to the post below again, and Q is, and then below that Q says, feel proud, autists, anons, and patriots. You did this. You are taking back control. You have the power. Stay the course. Q. A little bit of encouragement from Q, which we all need from time to time. Now, this is the next one. And Q is saying that, with that list of that Anon just showed us, he's saying it's obvious mainstream media coordination, right? Independent, POTUS coordinated attacks. They're coordinating their attacks on the President of the United States. And it's a coordinated effort by the mainstream media, and we know that. Q, coordinated attacks. So they're doing the same thing with Q. They're coordinating their attacks on Q. They're coordinating their attacks on POTUS. This is nothing new. They all get their talking points from the same place, and they just vary the words very slightly, but they all almost have the same they almost all have the same thing. And there are videos out there just with one channel after another, after another, after another, saying the exact same thing. It's crazy. Anyway, what else is under coordinated attack by the mainstream media? Well, anything conservative. Anything conservative. Anyone with an opinion that is against the main narrative. If you are against abortion, then you're going to there's going to be a coordinated attack against your voice if you're speaking out against anything, such as the wall, to keep out illegal aliens, to keep out people who are illegally trying to gain entrance to this country. Certainly, nobody's talking about keeping out people that apply through the legal channels. But yeah, I mean, anybody that has an opinion that's an alternative to the main narrative is attacked. Logical thinking. What do they know? Why won't they ask the obvious question? Why don't they ask President Trump during a press briefing or whatever? Why doesn't anybody ask, who is Q? Why won't anybody ask that? But they never do. I'm wondering what the answer would be, really. I really would love to know. But I just don't understand. Isn't there one person out there that can say, excuse me, like, what is Q? Are you aware of Q? Is this coming from an official White House source? Like, why aren't they asking the obvious question? They don't want to know because they already know. All for a conspiracy? Enjoy the show. Q. All right. Now, this Anon said, Q is responding to this Anon, and this Anon is saying, articles about Q. Why do they never ask the Anons why they are here? Real Anons are here as we follow the evidence, documented, verifiable evidence. We are building the truth of our history so we can expose and dismantle the corruption that has plagued our world for millennia. I invite any publication to print this as a statement of fact from an actual Anon. We do not tell you what to think or how to feel about a topic. We simply dig for truth and then present what we find so it can be scrutinized by our peers and further corroborated. The choice to know what we have found, verified, and presented is entirely up to you. Presenting our work in a way to imply we are some sort of cult shows the world how corrupt the mainstream media has become. We are not about violence, subversion, or control. We are simply providing fact-based information free of charge to the world. Where we go one, we go all. Feel free to share. And Q responds, excellent. You cannot fool a massive group of dedicated gold star researchers. At what point does it become mathematically impossible? Communication structure designed for a very specific reason. They designed this, they're communicating this way for a very specific reason, through the chans. They chose that method to communicate, and really there was no other method to choose, because that is a completely uncensored forum or vehicle for the message, completely uncensored. So they couldn't go through mainstream media, they couldn't go through Twitter or Facebook, because they'd be banned or shadow banned, or we all know what's happening there. So really, where else could they go? It makes perfect sense to me. All right, let's go on. All right, now let's look at this. Joshua Adam Schultz, charged with the unauthorized disclosure of classified information and other offenses relating to the theft of classified material from the Central Intelligence Agency. Jeffrey S. Berman, United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, John C. Demers, Assistant Attorney General for National Security, and William F. Sweeney, Jr., Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, announced today that Joshua Adam Schultz was charged in a 13-count superseding indictment. The indictment, in connection with his alleged theft of classified national defense information from the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, and the transmission of that material to an organization that purports to publicly disseminate classified, sensitive, and confidential information, Organization 1. The indictment also charges Schultz with the receipt, possession, and transportation of child pornography, as well as criminal copyright infringement. Schultz, who is presently detained on the child pornography charges, will be arraigned by the U.S. District Judge Paul A. Crotty. So, Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jeffrey S. Berman said Joshua Schultz, a former employee of the CIA, allegedly used his access at the agency to transmit classified material to an outside organization. During the course of this investigation, federal agents also discovered child pornography in Schultz's New York City residence. We and our law enforcement partners are committed to protecting national security information and ensuring that those trusted to handle it honor their important responsibilities. Unlawful disclosure of classified intelligence can pose a grave threat to our national security, potentially endangering the safety of Americans. Assistant Attorney General John C. Demers said the National Security Division, alongside our partners in the intelligence community, will not waver in our commitment to pursue and hold accountable these officials. And I commend all those in the Department of Justice and the FBI who have worked diligently to investigate this matter and bring these charges. Assistant Director in Charge William F. Sweeney, Jr. said, as alleged, Schultz ultimately betrayed the nation and downright violated his victims. As an employee of the CIA, Schultz took an oath to protect his country, but he blatantly endangered it by the transmission of classified information. To further endanger those around him, Schultz allegedly received, possessed, and transmitted thousands of child pornographic photos and videos. In an effort to protect this nation against crimes such as these, the FBI's Counterintelligence Division in New York will continue to keep our mission at the forefront of our investigations in protecting the American public. So this is awesome. It looks like they are. I'm not going to read all of this, but wow, he's got a lot of stuff here. These are all the counts against him. Holy, yeah, wouldn't want to be him. Look at the penalty that's these things carry. Wow. Guess you're not going to be sending any more kitty porn, are you? All right. Now, let's go back. So, he says, Q says tracking, unsealed indictment. Q. So I guess he is saying to us that this is one of the unsealed indictments. I'm not exactly sure what he's saying here. That's what I would assume. He's asking us, are you tracking this stuff? This is an unsealed indictment. And there are many indictments. So I think for those of us that wonder what's being done, seeing things like this shows us that, yeah, you know, they're working behind the scenes, that there's a lot of stuff being cleaned up that we don't see. Now, I think this might bring us up to the 31st, and it does. So that will be the last post. I will bring you the 31st probably tomorrow, because it's 11:42 p.m. Eastern time, and it's getting late, and I still have to finish researching the post from today. So if that is the case, and if, well, it is the case, not if that is the case, it is the case. But tomorrow's posts, I'll try to get to those as well. So I'll probably do 2 videos tomorrow to catch us up. Then we'll be caught up, and we'll all be happy. And we'll all sing and dance, and I don't know. Maybe not. Anyway, have a good night's sleep. I hope you guys sleep well, that you have a wonderful day tomorrow. Please stay safe.